I'm a resident of Richmond, Virginia. I'm the least prepared person you'll see tonight. I found out about that this morning, and I put out a call, can I get a ride out there? And I ran down to the Sierra Club and got a carpool out here. And I don't have facts and figures. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk. However, the timing of it, 5 o'clock on the end of this, work day, is very difficult for people to get here, especially those with children, soccer, and so forth. So I think that's a little unfortunate, but I'm still grateful for the opportunity to speak. I have a landlord and friend who does conservation efforts on homes. He seals crawl spaces with a very thick rubber and glue and seals everything. Your crawl space is not supposed to breathe. Those little crossets, ridiculous. So he does that. I've helped him at Spider City. And he also does the proper insulation of attics and so forth. And he absolutely, I wish I texted him. He's up at some conference up in New York saying, give me a one-pager on what you do, because if people knew how much energy could just be saved by simple measures like that, everyone would do it. I mean, everyone would run out and buy a case of caulk and hand it out to their neighbors that can't afford it. We do that, so, on such a easily doable level, I think is very important for everyone to know. It's not, the wind does not have to whack through your window. There are things we could do to help our neighbors as well as ourselves. Wish I had the numbers on that, but I know that he keeps our house with no heat and no air conditioning for most of the year because of those efforts. That's one thing. Also, I had the pleasure to drive cross country with my brother this summer, and I could not believe the solar farms in Texas. And I could not believe, I was just like, why don't we have that in Virginia? I'd like it. I don't know the actual regulations. I know that there had been regulations against people storing their own solar power for their own use and not being able to give it back to Dominion or something like that. I hope someone speaks to that. Is Mr. Berger in the house? All right. There were a couple of things I also wanted to say. The James River, as far as like the don't drill, don't blow up mountains. I don't like the fact that I can't take my daughter into the river after a rain because of all the pollution. The asthma that children, especially in Richmond, suffer from because of, I feel for the guy that has to pay his electricity bill because he works for a coal mine, but I'm sure that we can retrain people to build clean energy, and there are so many opportunities. I mean, even Dr. Ben Carson, who said, show me the science on climate change being caused by humans, and Jerry Brown wrote him a really nice letter and a flash drive saying, here it is, there's a lot of jobs out there. This is a really win-win situation for the people and the planet. And with that, I pass.
Yeah. Pam Dummett.
So I'm here tonight representing the Richmond Audubon Society, which is the local Central Virginia chapter of our parent organization, National Audubon Society. I'm also here as an individual. I live in the city of Richmond, but also own a property with 4 of my conservation-minded friends in Highland County. We use gas there, and we are also a member of a co-op to get our electricity. So we have a pretty broad interest in these issues that are being discussed here tonight. We're basically a 1,500 member organization. It's an all-volunteer nonprofit whose mission focuses on conservation, education, and advocacy for issues relating to birds, habitat, and the environment. David Yarnold, who is our president and CEO of National Audubon, said warming trends are one of the most significant threats to birds, their habitats, and global diversity. And scientific studies show that these warming trends are created by carbon pollution from fossil fuels. I'm sure you all already know that. Bird migration patterns have already been impacted up and down the 4 migratory superhighways in the sky that we call flyways across the United States. Virginia sits right smack in the middle of the Atlantic flyway. Of the 305 North American winter species, 60% of them are shifting their ranges northward on the average of 35 miles. You can see this in your backyard. It's happening right now. So National Audubon partnered with 22 other groups and formed the Wind Turbine Guidelines Advisory Committee. These included the Nature Conservancy, Defenders of Wildlife, Department of the Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, etc. One of the things that we wanted to emphasize about the guidelines that came out of this group was that the guidelines are not just for protecting birds. Of course, that is an interest for us, but we also are interested in creating jobs for local economies throughout Virginia. We want to make a contribution to lower power bills. We want lower pollution. We want to provide a roadmap for a collaboration between industry and conservationists. And we want to make America a healthier place for people and wildlife. We support clean and renewable energy, and that includes the wind and solar powers, with the caveat that these projects are designed to minimize impacts on bird flight patterns and include studies focused on how to minimize invasiveness to the environment. If the United States obtains 20% of its electricity from wind power by 2020, it will reduce greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to taking 71 million cars off the road or planting 104 million acres of trees. Expanding wind power instead of fossil fuels avoids the wildlife and human health impacts of oil and gas drilling, coal mining, and burning fossil fuels. DEQ can help us solve the problem through creating a strong Virginia plan, which we're talking about right now. We really like the Air Check Virginia program that's currently in effect in Northern Virginia, and we encourage you to think about expanding that across the state. We'd like you to continue funding support for the CCM program, eelgrass restoration, which is having a really good effect, and also to support renewable power. Virginia is ranked 26th in the nation for renewable capacity. Most of the forms of renewable energy emit zero carbon dioxide in the production of electricity. So it's not perfect. They do harm birds. There are collisions with turbines and other structures, but we strongly support wind power, and we hope that going forward there will be proper siting and operations of wind farms, development of new technologies, migration habit and wildlife impacts through conservation, and strong enforcement of existing laws. Thank you very much.
I hope I get this one right. Robert Walton? Sarah?
You can correct me. Bad handwriting. It's Walters.
Sorry.
Evening, folks. My name is Robert Walters. I'm here representing 350 Central Virginia. I'm also a member of several other environmental groups, but I'm also a father of 3, a grandfather of 2, and have a wonderful wife. But what I'm here tonight is to say that I'm definitely in favor of the Clean Power Plan regulations. I think we actually need to go farther than that. I spoke in front of Labor and Commerce when the preliminary regulations, proposed regulations were submitted, and I spoke in favor of them that time too, and I think that Virginia got off the hook with the final, and they don't have as much of a difficult burden to beat. We've heard some discussion about cost tonight. And cost, I think, is important, but I think also more important than that is life expectancy. When I like to think about fossil fuel jobs, fossil fuel jobs are dead-end jobs. In the end, they're going to leave us all dead. I was also down in May at the signing of the Clean Power bills at Capital One when the governor spoke. And he spoke at that meeting talking about what a progressive state Virginia was and how progressive states are where corporations want to go today. I asked, is Virginia a progressive state? I talked to him after it was over. I waited until he stopped kissing babies and passing pump and flesh and all that, and I caught him by himself. But I pointed out that we had already approved 3 1,600 megawatt gas facilities. We had a 4th that was supposed to go to the FCC in January. I think it's already been there. So now we're talking 4 1,600 gas facilities, which is 6,400 megawatts of power from gas. We also have a 2,000 megawatt nuclear plant that's sitting in the wings, which at one point was thought to be one of the solutions to the clean power plant. 8,400 megawatts of dirty fuel. What do we have that the General Assembly approved last year? They approved a 400 megawatt plant, one 400 megawatt plant. You had 2 demonstration wind turbines that Dominion Power was going to produce, 6 megawatts apiece, 412 megawatts. Does that make us a progressive state when we're relying that much on 8,400 megawatts versus 412 megawatts for power production? It doesn't at all. Costs, we talked about, the gentleman talked earlier about costs of paying bonds down and the like. With all of this being built right now, plus the pipeline on top of that, that is hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to have to be paid to produce electricity in a manner that's obsolete. We really need to be looking at creating new jobs, creating jobs in the area of clean renewable energy. So I think that cost, as I say, is something to look at, but life expectancy is important. And we do see what's happening, whether it's asthma and different things going on right now with our health. Can we do it? I don't know. You know, Amazon just announced a 600 megawatt solar facility coming up that they're going to produce. So of course, that's going to take General Assembly approval. And I hope also that they don't have to pay the connection fees that DEQ had actually introduced last year that via Alex that didn't get approved, and I know that APCO wants to introduce this year, so that those of us that put solar on a house have to pay connection fees, but these big facilities don't. So with that in mind, again, I'll just say that I am very much in favor of the clean power plant regulations, and I'll look at them as a minimum. I think we should be doing more. I think we should not be investing the hundreds of millions, if not billions, that we're going to be investing in this nuclear facility, in these 4 gas power facilities, in the 4 major pipeline programs that are going through the state right now. That is money down the tubes, because all of those sources of energy are going to be shut down sometime in the near future, in the next 10 years, 15 years. We can't continue with what we're doing. Thank you.
Elizabeth Williams.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Williams, and I'm speaking for the children of Virginia. And a word about my background. I'm a physician, recently retired pediatrician from Charlottesville, Virginia. And before medical school and college, I studied biology, and then after college had the opportunity of working in a chemist lab. He was studying photosynthesis, that miraculous chemical reaction that happens in plants when they take all the CO2 we're talking about and turn it into complex carbohydrates, the fuel of life, and give off oxygen that we breathe. And here we see the root of the cycle of life on our planet and our exquisite interdependence, and we cannot forget that. The focus of my entire career has been the healthy future of my patients, children, teenagers, young adults. We all know the tremendous amount of work, love, and attention required to raise a child. We yearn for a healthy, creative, and content adult life for children and the future of our society. And so I would like to speak to you for the children of Virginia. And I ask, are we undermining our efforts, our hopes, by failing to adequately address climate change? All of you know the science behind climate change, the ill effects of greenhouse gas emissions, and the dire predictions of climate disruption and devastation, and the imbalance of our exquisite cycle of life systems. What future do our children and children's children face in light of climate change and our continued use of fossil fuels? And the predictions are bleak. This is a moral question for each and every one of us and for society at large. those of us with education and the ability to act are obliged to respond. The Commonwealth of Virginia's response to the EPA's Clean Power Plan is an important step to turn around the increasingly dismal predictions of global warming and environmental disruption. I asked Governor McAuliffe and the DEQ to instigate a Virginia state plan that vigorously supports a move away from fossil fuels, including the methane-leaking natural gas fuel, moving toward a robust development of alternative green energy, and toward increasing energy efficiency. And I would note that we already have a good model in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So that's really my call to us to respond to the moral situation of near families. Thank you all.